Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gearhart. I'm here with Matt Goerke. And Matt, how do I remember things?
Yeah, Elizabeth, it's a great question. It's one I hear from just about everyone that I'm in contact with. The ability to recall information, people's names, list of things to do, client information, product knowledge, as a professional, as a student, how to recall answers for tests, critical information like where you parked your car, left your glasses, maybe becoming increasingly important to some of our listeners. But these are critical bits of information that we need. No one is shown how to properly use their memory. So what I've done for the last 25 plus years is show people how to release the wonderful natural ability they have, but more importantly, how to turn it on and off when they need it. People have strengths and weaknesses. They're good at one thing, they're not good at something else. But the ability to say, here's a critical piece of information I need. How can I store this information properly so I can recall it when I need it? That's the crux of what I do in my memory switch program.
So, how do I remember names?
That's probably the bugaboo that I hear the most. Everyone will say, you know what, I think my memory's decent, but I can't remember names. A couple things that are important when you're dealing with names. First off is focus. Now, my memory switch program, I take you through a six-pronged approach to better increase your ability to recall names. But I'm going to give you and your listeners two quick hints. Now, here's the good news. Well, good news, bad news. 85% of people will forget a person's name in the first 2 minutes. So in other words, if you're feeling alone, you're not. Effectively, 9 out of 10, the handshake breaks, the name is gone. And what I discovered, it doesn't happen an hour later. It doesn't happen a week later. It generally happens right up front. So working towards alleviating that particular problem, I'll make these two quick suggestions. Maybe your listeners want to jot them down, but by all means, take notes. Serious business, okay? If this is all they do, they'll see an immediate and dramatic improvement. First, slow down, clear your mind and focus. Slow down, clear your mind and focus. Now I know your listeners are thinking, duh, gosh, man, obviously the first thing you want to do when you meet a person for the first time is focus. And yet generally, here's exactly where the disconnect occurs. Hey, my name is Matthew. Your name? Elizabeth Gearhart. And what I'm really thinking is, hope my hands aren't too sweaty. What do I say next to make a good first impression? I love the background that she's using. Glasses, you know what? I should get a pair of glasses. I'm using the lenses and I don't really like them that much. Gosh, it looks like the sun's coming out. I'm doing everything in the world except what? Focusing on the name. In other words, if you're shaking hands thinking, I hope my hope my hands aren't too sweaty. What do I say next to make a good first impression? I wonder if this is going to be a piece of business for me. You missed step one. You never heard the name. So that step two, remembering the name, is not even an option. Next thing I would tell people is repeat, repeat, repeat. This works on two levels. First, neuromuscular memory. Our bodies have a memory for things we do repeatedly. One aspect of that memory that I've looked at very carefully has to do with verbal memory. And the physiology is actually very simple. As you speak, your vocal cords vibrate. If you put a couple fingers alongside your throat right now and say Matthew Goerke or great memories, say memory switch, you feel the vibration that occurs when you speak. As you speak, your vocal cords vibrate. Those vibrations will hit your heart palate and directly stimulate your mind and your memory. In other words, one way to begin to commit a piece of information to your memory is simply to speak it. Now, there's decidedly a right way and a wrong way to do this, right? So, hey, my name is Matthew. Your name, Elizabeth? Ooh, Lizzie.
Yeah, like on the office.
Yeah. That would be the wrong way. Just so we're clear on that. Better. My name is Matthew. Your name, Elizabeth Gearhart. Elizabeth, I understand you have a podcast that you do, Fireside. How's it been going for you? Elizabeth, I understand that you've interviewed some really pretty interesting people, and there's a radio show involved also, Elizabeth. At least that's what I've been told. What did I do? I used the name in conversation. There was no weirdness, not Elizabeth. Use the name in conversation. Now, understanding this much, if all we're talking about at this point is memory, I've got the name down. I'm past the embarrassing first 2 minutes. I'm a 15%er. I probably won't have to call you sugar anytime soon. But I also said it worked on another level, interpersonally. See, what did I allow you the opportunity to hear? Your name.
You let me hear my name, but you also let me hear nice things about myself.
Yeah, I let you hear your name, which is your favorite sound. And what did I let you talk about? Yourself, your favorite subject. Favorite sound, favorite subject in the first 30 seconds. Some of your listeners may not be familiar. First impressions in an initial meeting. 10 to 30 seconds is when you begin to make a first impression in an initial meeting, right? So if the first impression you're making of someone is, I'm sorry, what was that name again? It's probably not a cool way to go about it. But letting that person hear their name and talk about themselves, that makes a good and powerful first impression. Incidentally, you make that impression in the first 10 to 30 seconds. You know how long it takes to change it?
Mm-mm.
3 weeks,
Wow.
21 days. 21 days in most people's business, you don't get 21 days. So here's the suggestion I make. Slow down, clear your mind and focus, and then repeat, repeat, repeat. It's about two things. One, grabbing a hold of a person's name. Incidentally, if you can do that, you're 1 out of 100. Most people can't do that, and people will notice you. But it's also about making a good and powerful first impression. Oh, incidentally, if you make a good impression in the first 10 to 30 seconds, that's great news. You know what it gives you?
No.
Well, 3 weeks to screw it up. Yeah. If you make a bad impression, the suggestion is this, especially in business, you're never going to see that person again. So it really is kind of a standout skill.
I agree. It is a standout skill. And there have been different programs through the years, but I love your 2 tips, and I am definitely going to do those from now on.
Mhm.
But I have another question for you. Does memory decrease with age?
You know, gosh, unfortunately, that's what most people are told, even by their own doctors, that you just should expect that your memories get worse. Here's what I've discovered. The natural aging process has very little to do with a loss of memory. In other words, simply to expect that your memory is worse at 70 than it was at 7, there's very little basis for that. Here's what they've discovered. As you age, you need more time to place information and you need more time to access information. And that's strictly a function of what? Stuff. Look, a 5-year-old, what's he got, 3 files in his whole empty head? There just ain't a whole lot up there. By the time you get to my age, to your age, you've got a head full of stuff. So it takes a little longer to put it in. It takes a little longer to get it out. But I tell you what, with training, you can have a better memory at 70 than you did at 7. In fact, aging and Alzheimer's, this is a question I hear quite a bit. If I were to ask you, Elizabeth, how do you stay physically fit? What would you tell me?
I walk every day, I exercise.
Yeah, exercise. You know how you stay mentally fit? Exercise. Yeah, actually do it 2 ways with my memory switch program. First, the training itself clinically proven to ward off the effects of aging, Alzheimer's, dementia, not a cure. But there are people with Alzheimer's who don't have memory loss. In other words, they have the pathology, they don't have the symptoms. And what they've discovered is generally it's people who continue to work, stay physically and socially active, went back to school, did the Sudoku, did the crossword, learned a new language, people who challenge themselves mentally. The other way I do it, I'm very proud. Memory switch, 10 hours of material, 17, 20 to 30-minute lessons, very short. Incidentally, I'm working with kids as young as 7, adults in their 90s, AD, ADD, ADHD, dyslexic, so LD kids. This is not rocket science. But at the end of each of the lessons, I work with a group of neuroscientists. We created some brain trainers. In other words, a simple 1 or 2 minute exercise that you could, and listen, you really should begin to incorporate now in a little mental fitness regimen that will keep your brain up to speed. In fact, I'll give you an example of one. Tomorrow morning, I want to challenge you and the listeners to brush your teeth with the opposite hand. You're going to poke an eye out. Just be ready for that. You're thinking, oh, that's not hard. I am telling you, the minute the wrong hand touches the toothbrush, your brain will hate you. But that's what I mean when I say challenging yourself mentally, not doing the same thing the same way all the time, doing things differently. And that's just an example of some of the things that I do with my memory switch program.
Right. So if I come to you with the question, how do I increase my memory fitness?
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of different techniques that you're teaching people.
Yeah.
And
Memory switch is a 3-pronged approach to memory improvement. First, I've developed a series of mental exercises, drills I do, games I play, little mental gymnastics, if you will, designed to begin to stimulate and exercise the portion of your brain where memory takes place. Look, that sounds mystical and magical. It's not. I don't get a lot into the science of it, but the reality is a memory is a powerful personal and professional skill. Most people don't know how to use their memory. Your memory is a muscle. It's an extremely neglected muscle. So exercises, drills, games you play, stimulate that area of your brain. It's It's called the hippocampus. It has to do with neurons and neurotransmitters. We can strengthen it and get it back up to speed. Secondly, I teach memory techniques. They're called mnemonic devices. Mnemonic device, simply a way to get information into the short-term memory long enough that it can become knowledge. Knowledge, according to Memory Switch, permanent and accessible information. Permanent and accessible. You know what that means if you think about it? It means you have a ton of information in your memory bank right now, things you can access instantly. But if you consider this, there's also a bunch of stuff up there that's in there that you can't necessarily get to when you need it and when you need it. So permanent and accessible. Lastly, I deal with focus and activation. Let me ask you a question, Elizabeth. Ever read a page of a book or a magazine, realize after you're finished, you don't remember a single thing you just read?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Did you forget what you read? Listen, one of the things I hit on in Memory Switch is the reality is most of what you think you're forgetting, you never tried to remember in the first place.
Yeah, I never processed it because I was distracted with other things.
Were you focused? Were you keyed in? Were you present for the information? Now pay attention in any one of these three areas, you're going to see improvement in your ability. Put together in the formative design and Memory Switch, again, synergistic effect. Listen, dramatic increase in people's recall capability. And I tell you what, I'm blessed. I've worked in personal improvement for years. I've shared a stage with people like Zig Zigler. I've worked with Tony Robbins' group, Les Brown, Brian Tracy, some people you may be familiar with. Mm-hmm. Great at what they do, but they're motivational speakers. One thing they can't do is guarantee results. Memory Switch is skills training. So I actually can make guarantees about what you'll be capable of doing when you're done with the program. Very unusual in the personal improvement field.
What about a person, I know people like this, who they'll get your name right, Matt Goerke, 4 out of 5 times. And the 5th time they have some sort of weird thing happen and they'll call you Matt Goerke. Mm-hmm. So can you fix that?
Yeah, you know what? I should explain a little bit more. Prior to the development of my program, basic association was the go-to technique. In order to remember something, you associated it with something. And it was great to a point. It worked for some things, didn't work for others. Some of the old memory experts were magicians and they used memory in their magic act. And that's exactly what it seemed like. And then when they realized, wow, I mean, I can monetize this. People want to know how to do this. You realize they were using a basic association technique that worked great for some things and great for them, but not necessarily for you. The main thing I address when it comes to memory in my Memory Switch program is this. The problem isn't remembering, because eventually you'll remember. It's recalling when you need it. So what I developed is a mental file folder system, if you will. Areas of your memory where you can begin to place information that you've decided is important and pertinent. You know, I've tried to be very practical in my approach. Here's something I need to recall for a test I'm taking, a presentation I'm giving, my list of things to do, client information, product knowledge, a person's name. I don't want to throw this in hope. I want to place this in so I have instant access to it when I need it. So in the strictest sense of the word, Memory Switch isn't a memory course as much as it is a recall course. How do I handle this? Perfect example, file system, hundreds of thousands of different files. But if I say, Elizabeth, grab me the Jones file, you go right to the cabinet and pull out that file. How come?
Because you know where to look. It's logically filed, right?
Right. But what if I were to start throwing the files in? Just going to be a file pile. I hope you're not familiar with that system already, right? It's say, Elizabeth, would you grab me the Jones file? Same cabinet, same information, but no organization, no order any longer. So all of a sudden it takes you an hour, it takes you a day, it takes you a week to find it. The main strength, the main technology I teach with my Memory Switch program is a technique I call VIA. And basically it's, here's what I need. What does this look like? Where am I going to put it? And how long do I need to keep it there? And that goes to the point you made about the name. Yeah, focus and repeat is going to be great, but it's going to be kind of short term. What am I going to do with that one name? You go to a party, I can teach you how to walk into the room, meet 25, 30, 40, 50 people, shake their hands, remember everyone's name. Now you're going to make a big impression on people at the party. What's the one name you need to remember? The person who walks up to you and says, I've seen your YouTube channel, Fireside seems great. I think I'd be a good guest. Can we talk more about it? Here's the one name that you need. So this is the information that's going to be handled differently. No, this I place in. So when I get the call, or when I run into this person at that meeting 3 weeks from now, I can say, "Oh, Elizabeth Gearhart, I met you at that chamber event. You said you might be good for my program. We have a waiting list at this point, but I think we should sit down and chat about this." That's using your memory as an asset, and that's what it really should be, not a liability.
Yeah, this seems incredibly powerful to me and incredibly powerful for everyone, like you said, but especially people in business, especially sales forces, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because salespeople are supposed to remember as much as they can about their clients and
Yeah,
prospects.
and primarily that's my market. I deal with a lot of professionals. Yeah.
So, can you give me an example of somebody that you've worked with who couldn't remember their own name hardly, and then by the end of your program were able to function in society?
Yeah, I get emails, I get texts all the time. People weighing in, just saying, "Listen, I started using your program and the results were great." So listen, I can't stress enough. This is not tough stuff. Every person listening has a phenomenal memory right now. It's not a difference between a good or a bad memory. Everyone's got a good memory. It's between trained and untrained. The reality is, when I go, gosh, this COVID thing has, I do live training for the most part, right? I do a lot of that. My memory switch program is a home study course. So this is something that people can do at home. It's actually more than I do in my live training, because it covers absolutely all the applications that I use. But uh, the reality is, you walk into a room, you meet 100 people, you shake hands, remember their names, you do some demonstrations to show what you can do with training, and you really do make a good impression. In fact, we shared earlier, people will see me use my memory and ask me, are you a genius? And I always tell them, yes, I am. There's nothing wrong with acting like you're the smartest person in the room. And the reality is, when you have information at your mental fingertips, people think you're smart. It's just one of the outgrowths of developing the technique.
That's true. I remember I was in school with someone who never forgot anything. And when you're in school, that's not always the best thing.
Oh
But
my gosh,
but
yeah.
everybody thought he was super smart because he remembered everything. And he was smart in some ways, but like in other ways, he wasn't as smart.
Right. But from a school standpoint, that ability to recall, I got a pet peeve. Memory switch. Kids as young as 7, adults into their 90s. Skills training is generic. So whether you're 7 or 70, I'm going to teach you to swim or ride a bike the same way. Same with memory switch. My pet peeve with kids is, to get A's on tests and good grades in school, you need one skill. What is it? Memory.
Yeah.
Duh. It's not taught. My daughter Jeanette used to teach 4th grade. She taught her students 2 things the school systems didn't. She used memory switch. She taught them how to study properly, specific study techniques, and how to recall answers for tests. Duh. And she taught them how to read properly. So they don't teach memory at all. And if you're lucky, you have someone who teaches or teaches reading properly. The upside was, her students are tops in the district every subject every year. Every one of her kids loves school. How come? They're good at it. They have good colleges, good jobs, nothing to do with IQ. I work with LD kids, ADD, ADHD. They're usually motivated learners. They're smart kids. What they don't do well is sit down, shut up, and get in a row. They're not real good at that. So you're giving them an alternative way to do things, something that involves game playing and using their imagination. It just goes sky high.
Great. Is there anything else we need to say for the video?
Um, Listen, I want people to go to my website. I know you link to that sort of thing. I want them to be able to contact me, and I'd love to do business with you and your listeners.